Welcome to your Full Circle Friday. My name is Sara, a certified trauma recovery coach with Full Circle Wellspring. Trauma causes a disruption in our neural pathways and can halt survivors from staying connected to themselves, others, and the world around them. They can abandon or exile parts of themselves behind a wall of shame and fear. These episodes are dedicated toward understanding trauma and learning about outside resources, adjunctive services, recommendations, techniques, coping skills, and more to support and encourage the survivor on their journey back to their authentic selves. Let's get started. If you are new to this podcast, this is a perfect episode to jump in on. I'm recapping from our most important key ideas from past episodes, and we have a special offer today. So before we get started, let me make a special announcement. Today marks our 33rd episode together. I want to thank you all for joining me as we walk our trauma recovery healing journey together. It has been my honor to share all these past episodes with you, and I look forward to delivering more helpful content to serve you the best that I can. Also, another announcement. I've been contacted by a few trauma survivors, authors, and other coaches who want to do interviews with me on our podcast. So in the coming future, look out for some Saturday specials where I'm going to have some bonus content collaborating with special guests right here on Trauma Survivorhood. Lastly, if you're listening to this episode, I want to offer you a podcast discount on an initial appointment. So first step, schedule your 20-minute complimentary discovery call and see if coaching is right for you and if we're a good match to work together. If you want to move forward coaching with me, you can use coupon code podcast33. That's PODCAST 33, podcast 33, when you book your initial 90-minute intake appointment, and you can receive 33% off. This cannot be combined with any other discounts or coupons and must be scheduled and paid for by Friday, April 8th, 2022. So schedule your discovery call soon, and let's get started our journey together. Now, for today's episode, let's get going. I want to talk about some of the keys to even starting, figuring out, and maintaining trauma recovery. So over the past 32 episodes, you've heard me say plenty of, this is super important, or this is really key, or sometimes I get fancy and say, this is so paramount to our healing. So let's look back at some of those things. Way back on the basics episode, I explained that it is a big key to even recognize that trauma survivors are often disconnected from their mind, body, and their true self. In the CBT episode, I shared how awareness is really a key step. In fact, I said specifically to CBT, awareness must be the first step in finding help. In the 4Fs show, I shared how important it is to understand the 4Fs in order to recognize which ones you gravitate toward and when you are moving into a 4F response. And in the Good Enough post, I challenged you in the importance of being able to recognize the coping skills you developed if you were an under or overparented child. Obviously, the theme here is that awareness to your situation, recognizing your abuse or traumas, seeing how it shaped you, and knowing truly how you are now as a trauma survivor, these are the first steps in really even starting this journey. During the flood episode, which was a guided meditation in case of a trigger attack, I said the first key was establishing safety in your body and the space you are in. Then in the Everything and Nothing episode, I said that mindfulness within your meditation practice is key to begin being present so you can reconnect to your mind and body. In the Humming episode, I stated the vagus nerve stimulation is key to calming anxiety and relaxing the body. The thread here tells us that once we can be aware of our current circumstances and our coping skills within our trauma world, we do need to shift from constantly being on an edge to a state of being present with our body, mind, breath, and finding peace in the present moments. This allows us to reconnect to ourselves, others, and the world around us, which is, of course, exactly what our trauma disconnected us from. For many of us, this is a practice, either a mindfulness practice regularly or some kind of self-care practice, a therapy or coaching schedule. The more often we can practice being with our emotions and in our own body, the more apt we are to be able to stay with them when we are triggered. In the Everything and Nothing meditation I quipped, this is the most important thing you'll do all day, and yet it is nothing at all. In the CBT episode, I declared that an important part of CBT therapy process is to challenge your thoughts with curiosity. But this doesn't just apply to that modality. In fact, it is how we must come into our emotions and body and mind, with curiosity. It's how we coach in our sessions. I help train you to stay curious by being curious for you, with lots of questions to help root out how you came to believe the things that you believe about yourself, so then we can challenge those feelings with gentleness. That's why we call trauma recovery coaching client-led, because you are leading your own healing. And even when your coach speaks, it's often to ask questions to lead you further into your thoughts or feelings until you find what you are searching for. In Acne of the Soul, I shared how important it is to give yourself permission to decide what is right for you and what's not. In the Basics episode, I explained how important it is to find a self-care regimen that works for you. In Books, I stated that the process is more important than the destination when we talk about trauma recovery. I want you to hear that no one can direct your healing. As your coach, my job is not to tell you what you must do, but to give you some ideas of what you can do to help yourself. For instance, I'll simply remind you that self-care is a must for survivors. I'll challenge you to find something that is self-care, and then I'll ask how you're doing with it. What that looks like for you is not for me to dictate. Along the way, you'll discover that some things just don't work for you. There may be a certain grounding technique that makes you more activated based on your abuse history. You may not be ready for a particular level of breath work. You may hate yoga. Perhaps you know you have to find a fulfilling career, but you're not comfortable to leave a current position. That is the process, and that's why I'm here to help you sort out, listen to you as you muddle around your pros and cons lists, and to challenge you, but then encourage you if something doesn't work out. We mustn't be afraid of the process of finding our healing. In the Basics episode, I said for certain that kindness is key. And then later in the Kindness Find Us episode, I doubled down that even recognizing we have a self-kindness part is a must. In our compassion episode, I commented that just by seeing your inner suffering, by really looking at it, we can truly understand how important self-compassion is. There is no easy way to go about this healing road. It's bumpy, twisty, scary, dark at times. It's definitely not a joyride, and it's worth it. Along the way, you'll fail, falter, and fret. You must learn self-kindness and loving compassion to give yourself the patience and grace that you need to do this hard work. Finally, just recently in the Jubilation episode, I said it's important to make room for celebration of the small wins along the way. As your coach, I will never let you run on by a sentence of how you did X, or you said Y, or you didn't do Z, and not recognize this huge accomplishment. Whether it's a boundary you kept, someone you said no to, a phone call from a triggering person that you didn't answer, a new coping skill you used or an old coping skill you didn't, a healthy risk that you took, a compliment you accepted, or anything of the like. I will help train you to celebrate your wins by reminding you how amazing you are, even when it's a small thing. This journey is meant to be walked together. Consider being coached along your recovery path. We'll find the keys that work for you and get you set on a smoother, more manageable road. It would be my honor to follow you along, point things out, encourage you, challenge you, and cheer for you, because you are truly amazing. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Trauma Survivorhood. This has been written and created by your host, Sara, a trauma recovery coach. For more info about me, trauma recovery resources, or to check out our support groups, classes, free survivor circles, private coaching, and more, visit www.fullcirclewellspring.com. Schedule a complimentary 20-minute discovery call to see if coaching is right for you. For the latest info on schedules and updates, follow us on Facebook at Full Circle Wellspring. All other media, social links, blogs, and show notes are posted in the episode guide below. Until next time, be well, survivors.